Jack Blackburn was one of the greatest trainers of boxers I ever saw. And he used to keep Joe Louis working long after he had worked out. He still would take him in private and teach him and show him and explain to him. And Blackburn knew what he was talking about. And Louis looked upon him as the man that actually was going to make him a great fighter. We read about all the knockouts he was scoring in Chicago, and we didn't realize that Joe Louis was as great as he was.
Joe was ready for his biggest payday yet. $2,750 against Lee Ramage, the heavyweight champion of California, a master boxer who had never been knocked out, until Joe accomplished just that with a lightning left hook. A white towel of surrender fluttered into the ring from the Ramage corner. But another white symbol in alarming numbers not only refused to surrender, but brought the battle for white supremacy to the very steps of the Capitol. Joe Louis could knock white opponents cold, but he and his black brothers were up against a faceless enemy still chanting, "If you want to be champion, you better be white." That was the unspoken house rule in the citadel of boxing, Madison Square Garden in New York.
Discrimination was very prominent in those years. And people, of course, never gave the black fighter, promoters, never gave the black fighter the opportunity that he justly deserved. And Joe Louis came along and changed all that. Joe Louis was a man who was respected by everyone in the world. I mean, he was loved and admired. And the boxing writers of New York, I recall, have an annual dinner. And this was in the middle 30s. And Jimmy Walker, who was the father of the boxing law in New York State today, he was a master of ceremonies at the dinner, and Joe Louis was being honored. And when Joe Louis was introduced, Jimmy Walker, in his way, he had the way with words. He looked at Joe Louis for a moment and he said, "Joe, you laid a rose on Lincoln's grave." And there must have been about 500 or 600 people there, and just as one, they all stood up and cheered and applauded for several minutes.
Joe Louis had the talent, but he needed a master strategist to open the door. Enter Uncle Mike Jacobs, Machiavelli on 8th Avenue, a genius of a ticket scalper whose ambition it was to take over the fight game. Signing Joe to an exclusive contract, he picked the perfect opponent for him, the Italian circus strongman ex-champion Primo Carnera. Primo was a giant puppet in the hands of New York racketeers who couldn't fix this fight. They tried to move in on Louis, but Joe was not for sale. Somehow, manager Roxborough held the boys at bay, and 60,000 fans crowded into Yankee Stadium to see the young brown bomber give the game but outclassed Carnera a fearful beating. When the fight was stopped in the 6th round, even the most narrow-minded bigot had to accept the 21-year-old Joe Louis as a logical contender and the most exciting puncher in the division since the days of Jack Dempsey.
Joe, I'm satisfied you're going to be the next heavyweight champion of the world. I hope so. Well, Joe, as your manager, I'm going to do everything possible to get you a chance to fight for the championship. Thank you.
Next on Joe's list was the colorful Kingfish Levinsky, managed by his even more colorful sister, Lena.
Punch that bag like you're going to Joe Louis. Go on, let it go. Let it go. Come on, King. Everything you got.
I am the king. I am in the greatest shape in my life, and I'm going out to beat Joe Louis.
I am very confident, King, and I know you'll knock Joe Louis out.
For the Levinsky fight, Jack Blackburn, a drinking man, said, "Joe, I don't feel good enough to climb up and down the steps to the ring." Joe said, "Chappie, you'll just have to climb up once." and made him promise that if he stopped Kingfish in one round, Blackburn would go dry for 6 months. After 10 punches, Levinsky was crying, "Don't let him hit me again." After Levinsky came another ex-champion, irrepressible Max Baer, considered by many to be as devastating a puncher as Lewis himself, but with a fatal flaw, a neurotic reluctance to train.
Hi, bud.
Say, how long do you have to do this?
About 2 or 3 hours. Strengthens my hands, you know, makes them strong. Just turning around like that, see? Boy, I'm tired, you know? That's hard work.
This was the banner day of Joe's meteoric rise. Not only were 95,000 people pushing their way into Yankee Stadium, but on his way to the fight, Joe actually stopped off to marry the beautiful Marva Trotter. 15 minutes later, Joe was headed for the stadium, where Harry Ballow, the announcer, still found it necessary to caution the crowd against expressions of racial intolerance.
In the name of that great American sportsmanship spirit, a spirit so conspicuous of you that it has made the American sporting public famous the world over. And may I respectfully beg that the thought uppermost in your mind and the sincere feeling in your heart be that regardless of race, creed, or color, let us all say and mean it, may the better men emerge victorious.
Baer came out swinging, almost as if in desperation. Before round one was half over, Joe was rocking the ex-champion with deadly lefts and rights.
Now Lewis is in close. They're right above me as I talk now. Baer with his back to me, and Lewis gives him 2 left jabs. The Baer once more. Lewis leads with a left, and Baer has got his hand back close against him. Now and then he sticks out. He ducked his head back that time, and he got a good stiff left jolt on the chin. And Max went into a clinch. The referee orders them to break. They're over here against the rope. Max straightened up. Max has got his back, and he took an awful right, and he has drawn to his knees. The count is 4, 5, 6. Baer is on one knee. 7, 8, 9. Baer is not up, and Baer is on his knees at the count of 10. Your fight is all over. Your fight is all over.
I'll tell you, in a way, I knew what was going on around me, and of course my legs were something wrong with my legs. I couldn't get up, and not only that, I saw more than one Joe Louis in that ring. It looked like whole Harlem was there. In this little ray of sunshine, you know, he couldn't go through those clouds. Too many dark ones. It was a hard fight. I was up against a very good man, and a man will go a long ways. I wish him a lot of luck and happiness in his marriage.
Was it a tough fight, Mr. Lewis?
Yeah, it was a tough fight, but I think I had my toughest fight home every night.
Whom would you rather fight, Joe, Braddock or Schmeling?
Braddock.
You think Braddock will be easier?
Yeah, much easier in the championship, too.
Oh, that makes a difference.
Yeah, that makes a lot
You
of
think
difference.
Braddock will be harder than Baer?
No. Can't be much harder than Bell.
How about a nice big kiss and finish it? Yeah.
That won't happen.
Joe and Marva Lewis stopped traffic in Harlem, where their presence helped dispel the Depression blues. This was the Harlem of the Cotton Club, Small's Paradise, the 3-cent shoe shine, honky-tonk rent parties, and Duke Ellington's Take the A Train. Joe and Marva seemed to be symbols of hope in a black world still stomping at the Savoy. But overseas, storm clouds had begun to gather, with Hitler building his war machine and shaking his fist at the decadent democracies. As if sending forth a knight of the swastika to do battle for the Nazi cause, Der Fuhrer gave his blessing to the German champion Max Schmeling, who now came to America to challenge the undefeated Brown Bomber.
Max, what makes you think that you can lick him?
By seeing the picture of the Louis and Max Baer fight, I think I have a great chance to beat him.
Max, from watching Joe Louis in pictures and in action, have you discovered any particular weakness in the Brown Bomber?
Yes, I did, but I won't tell.
What Max Schmeling wouldn't tell the reporters, he demonstrated dramatically in the 4th round when he caught Joe, hurt him, and dropped him for the first time in the Bomber's short but brilliant career.
Well, you know, Joe, it was a very